Hey, second grade, ready for your art lesson with your friendly neighborhood art teacher? Today we're going to be working on drawing the lantana flower. Your expedition is the secret world of pollinators. Your guiding questions: how can we help each other grow? How do pollinators help plants grow and survive? How do we become researchers and share our learning? And why should people help pollinators to survive? Today, your learning targets are: I can identify simple shapes in lantana flowers, I can draw the details of a lantana flower, and I can completely color in my picture. Before we begin, you're going to need paper. Lined paper or printing paper is just fine, pencil and eraser, and coloring supplies. I don't mind if you use colored pencils, crayons, or markers. Remember, you want to draw big. So these are some examples of lantana plants or flowers. If you look closely, you can see that they're actually big balls of flower made up of lots of little bitty flowers. We're going to be drawing just one of those clumps of flowers today, not two or three of them together like you see them in the bush right here. So this is the kind of thing that we're going to be working on today. We're just going to work on one part, even though you know there were more of them around it. The first thing we're going to work on is drawing one part of the flower. Then we'll talk about how we can put all of them together. So the flowers are shaped with a little circle in the middle. Oops, sorry, didn't realize that was in the light. Then you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 around them, but you're going to come through and you're going to go up, and then there's a little a bump there. I'll make this line darker, and then a little line right there. Make this part darker, a little U right there, and come back through. And then we're going to erase those parts of the circle on the inside. And now what we have is this kind of wobbly 4 bump flower. We're going to add little lines because that's going to show that's the middle of that petal, that's the middle of that petal, it's the middle of that one, and there's the last one. And that's just a detail of the lantana flowers. Just a very simple way of drawing them. If it helps you, do each one of the circles. Don't forget the guy on the inside. Then add the little U's that connect them. And then you can go back over. You can make these darker. By the time we're done with this one, you're probably going to be able to draw the inside and then go whoop, whoop, and do all of these without too much having to worry about the other steps. But don't worry, remember, this is the first time you guys are drawing flowers like this. I'm going to draw at the bottom of this page the next part, the big flower. If you still have it, go ahead and use that DVD we used for the last one, just so you know how big that big clump of flowers is going to be. Then I'm going to add 3 leaves, pretty big leaves, next to it. So I'm going to add 1 oval, 2 oval, and This guy's in the back, so he's not a full oval. I'm going to make him kind of half of an oval in the back. Next, I'm going to look at the leaf outlines. They're not perfectly smooth. I'll start here and I'm going to make, looks kind of like I'm drawing some sharp pointy waves going down the beach to come back to the bottom. I'm going to do the same thing on that side. So I got point, 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 back down. Now, I won't see these extra lines, so I'm going to erase them. And if I accidentally erase part of my leaf, I'm going to throw away my paper and start all over again, right? Nope. I'm just going to redraw anything that I may have accidentally erased when I was working. Now I'm going to add the middle of the leaf. This is that part where they get their food coming through. And one more little bit at the bottom. Do the same thing on this one. I start at the end and draw kind of like little triangles, or maybe zigzag lines, whichever way will help you remember. Then more zigzag lines coming down. And once again, I'm going to erase these extra lines because you wouldn't see them. And they were just there for guides anyway. And go back over anything I may have gotten erased a little bit. That line darker. And then my last friend back here, he doesn't have the end. We don't see the top. He's on the other side of the flower. So I'm just going to draw a few sharp lines. So, now we have our leaves. It'll be pretty easy. I'm just going to add the stem real quick. We're going to start adding in where we want these little flowers to go. So I'm going to say, I'm going to draw one here. Then another one is going to be next to it. Now, if you remember when you're looking at them, they're pretty close together. There's some of them going to be on top of each other. Some of them are going to be really on top of each other, but they're all close together. They're going to be touching, so I want to make sure that my flower, the edges are touching. I'm going to draw one up here, one in the middle, another circle. Try and keep your circles about the same size. And hey, look what I'm doing. I'm drawing big. You want to make sure these are big. If they're tiny, it's going to take you way too long and you're not going to be able to see what you're doing very well. So I'm going to draw some more circles. So right now, it's looking like I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 little flowers I'm going to draw. That's great. There's usually a lot of lantana flower or little pieces of the flower. So I'm going to zoom in, or I'm going to focus on my first flower down here. It'll probably be helpful if you start next to the leaves. Remember, we're drawing the inside of him. I'm going to give him his first leaf, or his first petal. Draw that U, come back over, draw the U, and the big part of the leaf, and boom. So I'm going to draw the middle. Again, if it helps, do the circles instead. Then come back through and draw over where it is. But if you do that, you need to remember pretty quickly to erase those middle lines. Otherwise, it can get really confusing when you're working on your flowers. So there's another one. I'm going to draw another circle. I'm going to draw the top. So there's a U up there, and a U, then an upwards U, and a downwards U, and an upwards U, and a downwards U, and the upwards, and then back down. You want to try and make sure that your flowers are going out to the edge of that circle. And do it again. U up at the top, U going down. U to the top, U going down. U to the top, U going down. U to the edge, and a U going back down. See, now they're starting to get close together. Over here, U up, U down. A U up, U down. Up, down, U, and U. So I'm going to keep going across. I'm going to move this a little bit faster so we don't sit here for the next 30 minutes watching me. Now, I've noticed that this one's going to end up being behind him. So I'm going to start over here on this side, and I want to go down here, and oh, look, he's kind of run into each other. So I want to try and make sure those two stay behind. Yeah, it was a little bit more wobbly than I wanted to be, but see, here's another one that's going to be overlapping, so I'm making sure that when I draw something, it stays behind the other one. I am drawing very hard so that you can see where my lines are. If it helps you, draw very lightly, like very lightly, barely let the pencil touch the paper, and then go back over, erase anything if you need to. But it'll be harder to erase things, or hard pencil markings. Alright, so I've drawn all of my flowers in there. I could probably fit part of one down there. Now, I'm going to erase. I'm going to try and erase lightly. Just the parts that are really on the outside, and I'll show you why. Because we're going to cheat a little bit when we are coloring it. So I'm going to try and get all of the outside bubbles. Alright, so how are we going to cheat? I'm going to take my colors. Lantana flowers, since they're supposed to attract butterflies and things like that, they're usually very bright colors. So I'm going to go back to using pink, but I'm going to find a red and a pink, a dark version and a light version, and then I need green. Oops. And I need orange because of the middle. So, quickly, we'll do the insides orange because those are the little seeds in the middle. And there. Now, here's one of the tricks. I'm going to take my darker color and I'm going to go in between, and I'm going to color in these little wobbly spots that are in between the flowers. This is going to make a little bit of a shading, It's going to make it look like you've got flowers that are sticking out too. And look, it's covering up some of these pencil markings I made. Because that's the dark part. Alright, I'm not going to do all of it because I think you can get that from there. Now, I'm going to keep my dark pen, or crayon, and I'll make those lines that we saw earlier. Then when I color over everything else with my light color, it'll stand out. And you don't see as much of the pencil markings. Just try not to color over the yellow though. So now it's starting to look a lot more like it's standing out. Then you know how to do your leaves. You can do dark on the outside, press down hard, and if you then press down gently for the inside, you can make yours a little bit darker. So, lantana plants are pretty bright. You can pick a color that you'd like to do. If you'd like to make them blues, you can do blues. If you want to do purples, you can do purples, pinks, oranges, colors like that. Don't do green, because green is the color of their leaves. Here's again the examples of the lantana flowers. Your task today is to practice the shapes for the lantana flower. You start off with the large circle for the big clump of them, add the leaves, add in all of the details, and color in the flowers. If that does not take you enough time and you have extra left over, draw a mini garden with an aster flower and a lantana flower. Try and keep track of all your artwork because I'd love to see everybody just come bring them all back to me when we come back. If you have any questions, you can email me at afrans@amanaacademy.org, and you can submit pictures of your artwork to that second grade Google Drive listed there, which will also be linked in the comments or in the links for the picture or for the video below. So I'll see you next time, second grade.